The Cato letters were written in the 1720s in response to the South Seas bubble in England. They were the most quoted source in colonial papers in the 1760s and 1770s during the American Revolution. This one is number 133, Saturday, June 15th, 1723, of Charity and Charity Schools by Trenchard. And it's a pretty long article. Scrolling down here. But to apply myself more directly to the charity schools, I shall endeavor to show that under the false pretense and affection of charity, they destroy real charity, take away the usual support and provision from the children of lesser tradesmen, and often from those of decayed and unfortunate merchants and gentlemen, and pervert the benevolence which would otherwise bestowed upon helpless widows and poor housekeepers, who cannot by reason of their poverty maintain their families. Every country can maintain but a certain number of shopkeepers or retailers of commodities, which are raised or manufactured by others, and the fewer they are, the better, because they add nothing to the public wealth, but only disperse and accommodate it to the convenience of artificers, manufacturers, and husbandmen, or such who live upon their estates and professions, and serve the public only by directing and governing the rest. But as there must be many retailers of other men's industry, and the greatest part of them will be but just able to support themselves, and with great pains, frugality, and difficulty, breed up their families, and be able to spare small sums out of their little substance to teach their children to write and cast account, and to put them out apprentices to those of their own degree, so those employments ought to fall to the share of such only, but now are mostly anticipated and engrossed by the managers of the charity schools, who out of other people's pockets give greater sums than the other can afford, only to take the lowest dregs of the people from the plough and labor, to make them tradesmen, and by consequence drive the children of tradesmen to the plough, to beg, to rob, and to starve. And like I said, this is a long article, and here's another tidbit. Oh, but say some pious and many more impious and hypocritical people, what would you hinder poor boys and girls from being well clothed, from serving God, and being bred scholars? I answer that there are few instances in which the public has suffered more than in breeding up beggars to be what are called scholars, from the grey pedant and to the solemn doctor, down to the humble writer and caster of accounts, to attain which characters does not require the pains and acuteness that are necessary to make a good cobbler. Yet they immediately fancy themselves to be another rank of mankind, think that they are to be maintained in idleness out of their substance for others, and for their fancied accomplishments are above day labor, and by an idle education require a listlessness to it. And when they cannot find the sort of subsistence which they aspire to, they are always perplexing the world and disturbing other people. And another tidbit. What benefit can accrue to the public by taking the dregs of the people out of the kennels and throwing their betters into them? By lessening the number of day laborers, by whose industry alone nations are supported and the public wealth increased. This article was written before public schooling was common, and poor people did not have access to gain an education in the United Kingdom in the 1720s. To learn a trade, they probably would have to indenture themselves. The topic of this article is charity schools, which assumably were the precursors to universal public schooling. In a way, the criticism of this article against charity schools, which could be extrapolated to public schooling, seems overly harsh, and it would be easy to slide into calling it wicked, evil, hateful, and bad. Except there is a very real concern of the tradesmen in business who hope to pass their business along to their children. There is truth in the concern. Educating the poor masses breeds competition which could drive them out of business. This is a very hard situation, because to go against that is to say poor people should not be helped to become educated, or even more poignantly, considering all things, poorly educated or educated with an agenda in mind. In any event, this article is a benchmark in the history of Western civilization and what we had to deal with to get to where we are today.